The federal government notified businesses today that applications open this coming Monday for the emergency wage subsidy program. That subsidy, worth up to 75% of employees' wages, will be retroactive to March 15th. Will struggling companies be able to hold on, though, for another 2 weeks? And what about small businesses that still don't qualify for help? Jean-Yves Duclos is president of the Treasury Board and the vice chair of the Cabinet Committee for the COVID-19 response. He joins us from the House of Commons. Hi, Minister Duclos. Good to see you again.
Hello, Vashi, and hello, everyone listening.
My first question, Minister, is on the timing of this program. You announced today a couple of things as far as the timing goes, and I think this is very key for business owners. They can start applying next Monday. If their application is accepted, how much longer beyond that until they get the money?
So 3 key dates, and today is an important date. Today there is a website being launched by the Canada Revenue Agency, which is giving businesses the ability to plan for next week's on Tuesday, when they will be able to deposit, to apply for the wage subsidies, and then the week after, on Monday the 5th, May the 5th, they will be able to receive their benefits 90% of the time. So it's 3 important days, and today is an important one because today there is a calculator, a website which is available to businesses for them to prepare and to plan for next week's time when they can deposit their application.
And I will link to that calculator. I have done so on Instagram, but I'll do so on Twitter as well, because I know a lot of businesses will want to try and figure out what that means for them. When it comes to the application process, is everyone going to be allowed to apply on Monday, or is it going to be like, for example, the CERB, where the advice was apply based on your birthday? Will there be some sort of staggered approach here?
No, starting next Monday, so April the 27th, all businesses will be able to apply.
Okay, and then what about businesses that don't qualify so far for either the wage subsidy program simply because they don't have a payroll? So we're talking about, let's say, small businesses. They also have not been able to qualify for the emergency loan program, which is $40,000 loan, interest-free for until 2022. If you pay back all of it, $10,000 is forgivable. People who, for example, pay themselves in dividends, they have not been able to qualify for any of the programs that your government put forth. How are you going to help them?
So there are 3 pillars, as you mentioned, for our broad emergency support. So there is the emergency loan, the emergency wage subsidy, and the emergency benefits. So these are 3 important pillars, which we launch very quickly. We are making changes and improvements to them every day almost. So we want to make sure that all of that support is helpful to as many workers and businesses as possible. So as I said, the wage subsidies application will be launched next week. Today is all that businesses need to plan and to prepare for their applications. The emergency benefit is going quite well too. It's a total of 8.4 million applications that have been handled, treated already by the Canada Revenue Agency. The 40,000 loan is also very important. More than 250,000 businesses have been able to apply and receive the emergency loans. So we understand that this is not all that we should do and will be doing, but it's quite a large number of businesses and workers that have been helped until now.
Yeah, Minister, I'm not trying to take away from the number of people and businesses that you have helped. With respect, I'm just pointing out that there are people we have heard from, whom we've interviewed on the show, who, for example, run a bakery that just employs seasonal workers who don't meet the $20,000 payroll threshold because they are just a newer business starting out, or they pay themselves on dividends. But they just, even if they can access the CERB, $2,000 a month is not going to keep their business going. If you say that you do have plans, as you just did, to address the gaps, when will you reveal those plans?
Well, this plan is ongoing. We've started about more than 6 weeks now implementing these very important, very quick, very solid emergency measures. However, we do understand that there are still holes in this big safety net that we've built very quickly. And as you know, every day almost the Prime Minister is announcing new ways to help Canadians. We understand how difficult it is for millions of Canadians, millions of families that go through very difficult times, tens of thousands of businesses that are also being challenged. We understand that the measures are going well. There is a lot of demand and certainly a lot of support to Canadians, but there will always be more to do.
There are two other things the Prime Minister brought up in the past week that I want to ask you about. Two conversations he says that he's having with the provinces. The first is on top-ups for essential workers, and the second is on commercial rent relief. The bones of that program were announced last week, in that the federal government will make loans to commercial property owners who in turn offer rent relief to their tenants. Has there been any progress on that issue? Let me start with the commercial rent piece. Has there been any progress with the provinces on that? Are you close to reaching an agreement?
Well, it's very timely and very relevant that you mentioned both of these two things at the same time, because in both cases we're working with provinces and territories in order to supplement the wages and the incomes of those that earn less than $2,500 a month, and also, as you said, to work with provinces and territories in helping small businesses pay for their rents. So in both cases we need to coordinate and to collaborate with provinces and territories. The Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and many other ministers are working every day to make sure that we make progress on those two fronts.
Is there any developments, though? Like, are you closer to reaching a deal? Let's start on the commercial rent piece, and I ask about that one especially because of how soon May 1st is looming, right? We've heard from so many business owners who were worried about paying their April 1st rent. They maybe worked out an agreement with their landlord, but May 1st is coming up, and not all landlords are able to pay their mortgage without the rent, or they're unwilling to make a deal with the tenant. Will there be a program in place for that rent relief prior to May 1st?
So we know that providing the wage subsidies, which again we talked briefly about just a moment ago, that's very important to pay for the variable costs that are wages. However, we do know also that, as you said, the fixed costs, such as the rent costs, these are very significant, in particular for smaller businesses. And that's why we are working very hard with provinces and territories, and that we look forward and hope to be able to announce something concrete very soon.
Before May 1st?
Well, we are doing all we can. As we said, this is a matter of working collaboratively and efficiently with provinces and territories. The progress is strong and I think very, very solid, but we are working collaboratively and we hope to make announcements as quickly as we can.
The Prime Minister also confirmed today, Minister, that two planes expected to come back with personal protective equipment from China had in fact returned empty. Are these the first two planes to come back to Canada empty?
Well, the international world in terms of procurement of these goods and services is extremely tight. Now, the circumstances are very difficult for all countries. So the particular instance you mentioned is an instance in which one plane couldn't stay longer in China because of quarantine rules on the part of China. Now, that's how it is. However, we are working very hard across all particular nations able to procure us with these goods. Also, nationally, as you know, Vashi, we have a very strong procurement agenda in Canada to procure domestically all of that essential medical equipment. It's going well, but we cannot take it for granted that it will always go well. So it's why we are working on all sides, all hands on deck, to make sure that we all have that equipment to give those that are to protect us the equipment they need to protect themselves.
Yeah, Minister, I understand the efforts that the federal government is making to turn production onto the domestic front, but we are still clearly reliant on China for the procurement of a lot of these supplies. And my question again is, was this the first instance of this happening, or has it happened before?
Well, all sorts of things have happened in the last few weeks because, as you can imagine, those things change almost every day. Nations compete with each other. There are security procedures to go through. There is a lot of different connections that are being made with different companies with which we didn't used to work. So all sorts of things are happening. I think Canada is doing quite well in comparative terms compared to other countries. But again, we cannot take it for granted that everything will go well. So that's why all ministers, in fact, we talk about this almost every day, do all that we need to do to secure that protective equipment and other forms of medical equipment for the medical workers that we absolutely need to rely on.
When you say, Minister, all sorts of things are happening, I'm just asking specifically, have other planes not met the requirements in China or sort of run out of time at the airport and have to come back empty? Or was this the first instance of that happening?
Well, I couldn't tell you exactly about the nature of each flight. No, I know some flights were not completely full as they were supposed to be initially. Some were delayed. Some actually didn't take place. We couldn't send the planes to different places in the world because all sorts of things change. But the good news is that until now, we have been able to secure the medical equipment, the medicine, the protective equipment that we need to have in Canada to look after those that look after us.
I just have 30 seconds left, Minister, but how much of our personal protective equipment right now, and I take your efforts being made to turn the production to the domestic side of things, but how much of our PPE comes from China? Can you give me a percentage?
No, I couldn't give you a percentage. I could tell you, however, that China has increased tenfold its production of medical equipment. So it's a source of procurement that wasn't so strong initially. Fortunately, we do have good ways to work with Chinese companies. One reason is that we have Canadian companies active in China for quite a while, so we're able to use those networks and those resources. But again, we need to be mindful that the situation is challenging and that we need to be making all possible efforts to keep maintaining our procurement of essential goods and medical goods and services in Canada.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Minister Duclos. Pleasure to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Vashi. Have a great day. Have a great night.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.